Hello, I'm Jinsun Park. I'll present my work, Non-Local Spatial Propagation Network for depth completion. Depth completion is a task to estimate dense depth information given sparse depth measurements. There are two main categories in depth completion in 2D space and 3D space. In 2D space, 3D point clouds are projected onto the image plane. It makes processing easier, but it is fragile to the mixed depth problem. In 3D space, point clouds are directly processed, but it is difficult to combine features from other modalities. Here is an example of the mixed depth problem. It easily occurs near depth boundaries. There have been a lot of depth completion algorithms. Direct depth completion algorithms regress dense depth directly. On the other hand, spatial propagation-based algorithms first estimate initial dense depth, and it is iteratively refined by the propagation process. In this work, we propose non-local spatial propagation network which can effectively utilize appropriate neighbors beyond the local area. In addition, we propose confidence-incorporated affinity learning for stable and accurate propagation. Here is an overview of our algorithm. Let's first briefly review the spatial propagation. Spatial propagation is a process that propagates pixel values or features to neighbors with corresponding affinities. In this process, it is very important to utilize relevant neighbors for better performance. The original spatial propagation network utilized line-by-line 3 neighbors from 4 directions, and results are combined. Soon after, the convolutional spatial propagation network improved this process by utilizing local 8 neighbors simultaneously. However, neighbor configurations in these networks are locally fixed. To tackle the problem, we propose a non-local spatial propagation network that predicts and utilizes non-local neighbors for the propagation process. Different from previous works, neighbor configuration varies for each pixel, and more relevant neighbors are predicted from the network with subpixel precision. Here is a comparison of various neighbor configurations. Fixed local configuration does not utilize more relevant neighbors beyond the local area, while our non-local configuration does utilize relevant neighbors beyond the local area. Another important factor in spatial propagation is affinity learning. Affinity values determine how much information should be propagated. Conventional algorithms adopted handcrafted features for affinity calculation. Recently, deep networks are trained to predict affinity values. In spatial propagation, proper affinity normalization is required for stability. Previous works utilized simple absolute sum normalization, but there exists a biased affinity space problem. Let's inspect the biased affinity problem with a toy example of a two-neighbor case. As shown in the figure, normalized affinity values are biased to narrow high-dimensional space with absolute sum normalization. This problem can be relaxed by normalizing affinity values only when the stability condition is violated. Otherwise, we can enforce the stability condition is always satisfied. For this purpose, the hyperbolic tangent function with a normalization constant c is adopted. In this case, the stability condition is always satisfied, but the viable affinity space is reduced. Moreover, determining the optimal C value is difficult. To solve the problem, we propose a learnable affinity normalization algorithm with a learnable parameter gamma. The normalization parameter gamma is learned to find the optimal normalization parameter and affinity space. Although the proposed learnable affinity normalization is effective, it is difficult to deal with noisy depth values during the propagation. Those incorrect depth values should not be propagated to the other pixels. Therefore, we predict not only non-local neighbors and affinities, but also confidence values. The predicted confidence values are incorporated into the affinity normalization process to minimize the propagation of noise depth values. Here is a detailed description of our network. We adopted ResNet 34-based encoder-decoder network as our baseline network. Our network is end-to-end trained with reconstruction loss, such as L1 or L2 losses. Note that no direct supervision on non-local neighbors, affinities, and confidences because there are no ground truths for them. Experimental results include depth completion results on indoor and outdoor datasets. We adopted the following evaluation metrics for quantitative evaluation. We first evaluated our algorithm on the NYU depth V2 dataset. Here are the details of our configuration. Here are the depth completion results. Our algorithm successfully preserves small and sharp depth boundaries and generates more accurate results. Our algorithm outperforms previous methods by a large margin. Next, we evaluated our algorithm on the Kitty depth completion dataset. Here are the details of our configuration. Here are the depth completion results. Our algorithm shows better performance, especially on depth boundaries. Note that the proposed method outperformed all the peer-reviewed methods. In the official Kitty depth completion online leaderboard, our algorithm is rank 1 in MAE, IRMSE, and IMAE, and rank 3 in RMSE. Here we provide a visualization of non-local neighbors. Non-local neighbors effectively avoid depth boundaries or reside in the same object. We calculated depth variance with fixed local and non-local neighbors. Non-local neighbors give lower depth variance value and imply that they are selected from more relevant locations. We conducted ablation studies to verify the role of each component of our network. For all the experiments, we used a set of 10K images sampled from the Kitty DC training dataset for training and evaluated the performance on the full validation dataset. The network was trained for 20 epochs with center-cropped patches for fast training, and the batch size was set to 12. Other settings were set the same as those for the full dataset. Here are comparisons of fixed local and non-local neighbors. Non-local neighbors show better performance regardless of confidence and normalization types. We also compared various normalization methods, and the proposed learnable affinity normalization shows the best performance. We also compared our learnable normalization with handcrafted confidence measures. The proposed confidence incorporated normalization shows the best performance regardless of neighborhood configurations and normalization types. Here is a visualization of the effect of confidence incorporation. Confidence incorporation successfully minimizes the propagation of noise depth values. We also compared the performance of learned and handcrafted affinities. Affinity predicted from our network shows much better performance compared to handcrafted one. The proposed method achieved superior performance with a relatively small number of network parameters. Here are visualizations of the spatial propagation process. We have proposed an end-to-end trainable non-local spatial propagation network for depth completion. Please refer to the paper and supplementary materials for more details. Thank you.